All right. Hi, I'm Taylor, and this is
I'm Dr. Annie from
Dr.
Roswell.
Annie.
I have my shirt on.
Awesome. And I get adjusted from Annie, but I'm also a holistic life coach. I'm a certified hypnotherapist, and I am in my master's program for my counseling program right now. So I'm one busy lady, but I'm really passionate about helping moms and helping them respond differently in the heat of the moment because I know the dreadful guilt that we all feel when we have a million things pulling our attention at one time and then we snap and then we're like, oh, I wish I would have done that differently. So I come from a family that had a lot of love, but was also very dysfunctional. So I've spent over a decade rewiring this nervous system of mine, and chiropractic and a lot of the skills and tools that we'll learn tonight have helped me in doing that. So that's a little bit about me. Do you want to introduce yourself further?
Sure. So I'm a pediatric and perinatal focused chiropractor. I have full certification in pediatrics. And then we see women like throughout pregnancy and really focus on like those mom years of like the kind of the prenatal journey and then like having kids, working with kids' nervous systems and moms' nervous systems, like that postpartum period is so important to help regulate the nervous system just because, everything is kind of up in the air and crazy. So that's our main focus. We're very like neurofunctional focused chiropractors. So we love nerding out about the nervous system with Taylor anytime she's in. And so when she said she wanted to put together this class, we were like all on board. My business partner, Rachel, couldn't make it today because she is also at home with her kids. Didn't have a nanny, but she has twin girls that are 7 that are just like the most fun ever and just want to play Barbies with her all the time. So that's what she's doing right now. Otherwise, she would be here too.
Awesome. Yes. And yeah, I'm also a mom of two. I didn't mention that, but it's been a long journey on this journey of motherhood and trying to navigate all of that. And me and my daughter also see Annie, and she has neurodivergence and all that, and so that's why we came for a more holistic solution to them and got a lot of help. And it was really interesting when she got her scans because they said like something in her C1, which is like the very top of your spinal cord, was flared, and she, out of the birth canal, like kind of got stuck. So I was like, this is so interesting because they said that it could have been there from birth. And I was like, wow, this is wild, how connected and how the development in the womb and throughout the birthing process really can have an impact on how we operate, therefore, after even into our adult years.
Yeah, well, even like you said, like healing stuff from childhood, like all the way through, like that emotional trauma and physical trauma
Mm-hmm.
and stuff can, I mean, our nervous system just wires around it kind of until we
Mm-hmm.
figure out how to reset that nervous system and how to like make it function again, like what we're going to talk about more parasympathetically. So
Mm-hmm.
not to get too far ahead of myself, but that's a huge part of like our healing journey and being able to self-regulate. And yeah, I love that stuff.
Yes. Amen. Yeah, that's what it's all about. And I think an important note that I often talk to my clients about is that we don't realize how much that impacts us as adults. We think, we've grown and we should know better and get over it, but it's not necessarily just in our mind. We have a memory in our brain, but we also have memory in our nervous system, and that has a big impact. And I did pull up a picture for us, Annie, which I'll get to in a minute. But basically what we're going to do today is just go over a really basic understanding of our nervous system. It might be review for some of you, but it's never a bad idea to revisit. And then hopefully you walk away with 2 to 3 tools for yourself to self-regulate in those heat of the moment times. And then we'll also just do a small exploration of fostering connection with our kiddos and our partners at home through co-regulation. And one of the things is like when we talk about this stuff, like, yes, it's for you. These tools are for you. you can also teach them to your kids. You can also teach them to your partners. So I feel like kids and partners in the world of moms are interchangeable. And anything that we're doing with our kids, we can also do with our partners. So just a kind of a note for you there. Um, but I will share this picture really quickly. Here we go. I pulled this up because I just thought a visual is often helpful. And just to show you here, this long yellow line that's going all the way down this picture, that is called our vagus nerve, and it's the longest nerve in the body. And I just wanted to pull this up to show you like how it actually um, impacts and influences and informs so many parts of our body at one time. So there's two branches of our nervous system. There's the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, which I'm sure you guys have heard of before. That sympathetic is more of the fight or flight response, and it is activated when there's a perceived stress or danger. And so I tried to find this meme because it's hilarious, but I couldn't find it. So I'll just tell you about it. It was a meme, or it might have been a reel, but it was like me laying in the grass after trying to get my kids out the door for school to signal to my nervous system that I am, in fact, not being chased by a tiger, but that I am just parenting my kid who's having a meltdown. But like your nervous system really doesn't know the difference. And I was like laughing because it's like, that is what it feels like. Sometimes it's just like so triggering, and it just wraps around you so fast that it's like you do feel like you're being chased by a tiger, but really there's just a 5-year-old in front of you who's, you know, having a meltdown. um so that's when that's going to get activated, right? And then there's the parasympathetic, which is what Annie and Rise Wellness really help us open up the pathways with. But that's our rest and digest. So that's activates when we're feeling safe and calm, you know, when we're reading stories at bedtime with our kids, as long as everything else has gone well at bedtime, right? But you know, when we're sitting on the beach and we're listening to the waves, it's like that sensation that we feel of like, relief. Like that's the parasympathetic nervous system. So
Gas pedal and brake pedal in our office too. That's our analogy, is like the sympathetic is like the gas pedal. That's like go, 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 pedal to the metal. And then the brake pedal, the slow down, the like, okay, let's catch our breath. Let's like
mhm.
center ourselves. That's the switching back and forth when we're driving, is like the gas pedal, brake pedal is kind of how.
I love that. That's easy to remember. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. And I was just going to introduce the polyvagal theory to you guys. That was a theory that was brought to us by Stephen Porges, and he's an American psychologist. But he explains how that vagus nerve that I showed y'all earlier, it's the longest one in our body, and it regulates those stress responses. So if we can activate that vagus nerve, we can activate that parasympathetic side of us. And through this vagus nerve, we can experience 3 different states. So one of those is called the ventral vagal. Again, that's when we're like calm, we're level-headed, we're in a sound mind, we're able to communicate things in a way that is respectful and grounded. It's when we're in control and connected. We feel safe and social. And then there's the second state is the sympathetic activation. So that's when we're feeling anxious, irritable, on edge, that fight or flight, or the gas pedal, as Annie said, like overwhelmed by that meltdown. And then there's also the dorsal vagal, which is you're kind of feeling stuck or numb or just totally detached. So that might be when we're kind of zoning out or doom scrolling. And like, I'm totally guilty of just feeling like, I've had enough, and I go into my room and I get on my phone, and then I'm like, what am I doing? I know better than this, but like at the same time, that is the state, right? Oh my gosh, my hand, it's like at pretending like I have a question. I'm I'm gonna stop sharing so that I can put that down. Okay. And so we have four responses to these states, which you guys have probably heard of before: the fight, the flight, the freeze, and the fawn. So that fight is when we're feeling like super anger and irritable. We could be snappy, start yelling, our voice increases, or we might feel like the need to escape. So, like I mentioned, kind of like going to that doom scroll. Um, or we might freeze and feel totally paralyzed and like unable to make a decision, unable to talk. I know that when multiple people talk to me at one time, that's what happens to me is I just like freeze and I'm just like, cannot compute, is what it feels like. My daughter, actually, she was watching Dancing with the Stars one day, and she says to me, there's like on the screen, it's like, it says system overload, and there's like a loud siren going off. And she was like, Mom, I think that's how you feel when you feel overstimulated. And I was like, you're right. That's exactly how I feel. It's like system overload, like just gotta reset, like shut down the computer and reset it. And then that fourth state is fawn. So that would be like people pleasing or not standing up for yourself, or just after you've said no, like giving into it. Which, this class is not meant to make anyone feel bad or guilty about the things that we do or have done or will do, because we're human and this is a natural occurrence that's happening. And that's why I'm trying to kind of explain it to you to hopefully, decrease some of that guilt that might come along with the learnings. But we do as best as we can with what we know at the time, and so every time we learn something more, we get to do better the next time. That's kind of how I look at it. So I do have an example about these, and then I'll kind of let Annie interject. But let's say we were in a grocery store with our kids, a very common thing that we'll experience as mothers, and our kid is having a meltdown about who knows what, because they never make sense and they're never rational, and they're always at the worst time, right? So fighting would be like, your fight response would be like getting angry and yelling at them and really stern and like, oh, like, no, you can't be like this, right? And then a flight response would be like rushing through the checkout to leave, or actually just like abandoning cart and getting the heck out of Dodge because you're just like, we got to go. Freezing would be like standing there, not sure what to do, just kind of looking around and maybe feeling embarrassed. And then a fawn response would be like, oh yeah, here's some treats, to make it stop. And you're just like trying to people please them. Which isn't always a bad thing. We often call those attitude adjusters when we need them, kind of when we're out skiing and whatnot. But with that, I know that was a lot. Do you want to add anything there, Annie?
I like you said, I mean, I think these are all just like they're all normal human reactions, right? I mean, they're all like kind of survival techniques that we've
Yes.
learned, and a lot of that again comes from like our childhood and like how our nervous system has wired from a young age, is how we react to those things too. And again, like sympathetics is not like you need sympathetics. That is a part of like it's a part of a lot of activities of our body. It's how our brain processes information, and it's also like how we survive and how we run away from the tiger, even if the tigers are kids, right? or
Hmm.
or anything like that. But the issue comes when there's like imbalance there too. So like you said, I mean, there's no shame in any of this. This is all just like we're bringing attention to it so that we can easily transition ourselves out of that fight or flight state and be able to get back into that parasympathetics without being like stuck in that sympathetic dominant. Like, not only am I like maybe fight or flight or freeze or fawn with my kids, but now I'm doing it all the time with everything, right? Like that's
Hmm.
to be able to transition smoothly between those things. Because if your kid's having a tantrum in the grocery store, one of those responses is appropriate, right? We're not
Hmm.
saying that we're not doing any of those things, because that is, you do need to address what's happening because your kid's also in that sympathetic, but being able to calm yourself down and calm them down is a huge tool to be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And by calming yourself down and being able to, more easily and efficiently, we'll get into this later, but you're modeling that and they're going to mirror you. I mean, not always. We hope that happens. But scientifically, we do have mirror neurons, right? So they will eventually kind of mimic what you're doing and vice versa, right? When we start yelling, they're going to start yelling.
Yep, exactly. That's part of the social Vegas. So again, like how you're wired from childhood. So hopefully
Mhm.
setting them up for better tools for adaptability later on in their life too.
Yes, yes. And that's, I think, why I'm so passionate about this work in particular is because I wish someone would have done that for me and they didn't. So then when I, you know, became in my late 20s and early 30s, I was like, oh, breathing. What? This is wild. How cool. I feel so good. But yeah, and I just want to kind of add on to your sympathetic insert there about how it helps us get shit done, right? Like it's good. It's just we don't want to be stuck in that cycle. And I think the more we practice, activating that parasympathetic side of us, the more familiar our body becomes with it and befriends it a little more. And so if we didn't have that wiring as a child, we can still formulate those pathways as an adult and access those states a lot easier.
Mhm. It's
Yeah.
just like, again, back to the gas pedal, brake pedal. It's like learning how to drive. Like you,
Yeah.
at first, it's like really shaky and you might be using both feet at once, but once you learn how to like smoothly transition, then it becomes like a no-brainer and it's second nature then.
Yes, I love that. I always say it's like we go to the gym and we work out and we're sore and we're like, oh, this sucks. And then eventually, you get a heavier set of weights and you're able to hold more. And that's what this is all about, right? Is like building that capacity for yourself. It's like going to the gym, but it's kind of more of an internal gym.
Exactly. Mental
Yeah.
gym.
Yes. Mental emotional gym. So what can we do, right? What can we do? We can begin to just recognize some common signs within ourselves, within our kids, within our partners, that are kind of signaling to us like that we're getting stuck in that cycle, that sympathetic cycle. So if we're, consistently really irritable, that's like one of the things that I've noticed with myself is like when I get snappy and I start getting real, what's the word for this? Like kind of snappy and bossy and just like, gosh, like why doesn't everyone clean up their shit or stuff like that? It's like I'm like, okay, this is not them. This is me being like, not in my best self state. But it could be overwhelm, it could be anxiety, it could be fatigue. Um, and then in our kids, right? Recognizing those patterns with tantrums, they might withdraw, right? They might just kind of shut down and not want to talk. Or they might be super hyperactive and like noticing that you can just kind of take mental note and help them work through that. And it's not like we have to be like, oh, you're overstimulated and you're in sympathetic activation and this is what we need to do. But we, can just naturally foster um, really good coping skills for them and teach them how to work through that themselves so that they don't have to learn it as adults, right? Like we are all doing here. Um, what did Ashley say? The looming mom rage, the tip of the iceberg. Yes. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Like when you, and I teach this in my mama mastermind, but it's like our body is constantly giving us signals of like what's going to happen next and how we're feeling. But a lot of us are not in tune with the sensations of what's happening on a somatic level within our body. So when we really get clear on like how we're feeling and what those sensations are in our body, we actually are getting signaled before we get to that tip of the iceberg. But oftentimes we're just kind of ignoring it, or we're not familiar with it, and that's okay. Like we don't know about it, and that's why we get to the tip of the iceberg. So if we can start to kind of recognize some of those things, like the racing of the heart, or the snapping, or the yelling, or whatever it may be, that's just a signal, right? That our nervous system needs some care, and that, we need a little bit more of that brake pedal, so that we can respond more in a way that feels, good to us, that we're not going to feel guilty about later, and also a way that builds connection, and solution for our families. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Are we allowed to chime in?
Absolutely, please.
I always, I always kind of laugh because I'm in this balance right now of like, I've spent quite a few years educating myself on like my triggers and like how to like, well, all the things. I have a daughter who's neurodivergent, and like, so of course that comes with a ton of like educating my family and myself and doing all the things we need to do. But like the mom rage thing is a very real thing for me. And at first, when I look back when I first became a mom to mine, she's almost 10 now. So there's so many things and signs that I saw, I can look back and see now that like I just didn't know better. I didn't have the education. I didn't have anybody advocating for me. So things that I thought were mom rage and things that I had to deal with on my own, like this is just normal. This is what you're supposed to experience. You're supposed to experience like this raging feeling within you that just like it's like the tip of iceberg, all the things underneath, the lack of sleep, the whatever.
Mhm.
I don't think I'm articulating myself well, but like now as it like further into adult like parenthood, I can feel those things and I can see it coming, and so I know how to like de-escalate myself or take the steps that I need to come back and like be like what deactivate the triggers or whatever, have whatever you say. But like sometimes, occasionally, those things still like reappear. And so my husband will get a mix of like this gentle parenting from me. And then the next day it'll be like this activated like mom bear, like it's like raging.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still like teaching yourself. It's just such a balance of continuing to learn and advocate and teaching yourself how to like get through each day or whatever. I don't know if any of that made sense, but I'm just giggling because it's like it's just a healthy balance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that all makes sense. I mean, I think you're speaking to a lot of what most women, but most moms especially feel is that like that burnout. I mean, especially right now after the holidays, starting a new year, getting kids back in school, like, there is just like the constant kind of overwhelm
Mhm.
um, that occurs with all of that. And like you said, at different points in your child's development and in, growing and learning and trying to do better, it's some days it's really great and some days it's like I can't do any of this.
I can't
But
reel it in.
yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Ashley. I think so many moms can relate to that feeling and that experience. And I just want to validate you and say that it's not about perfection. And like, I even used to have this image of like this gentle parent who was just like, the light is shining down on us and everything is perfect. And, like I can breeze through any tantrum or meltdown or obstacle. And like that's just not realistic. And I think even sometimes like social media and things like that can make us feel like there are moms out there living like that. And I can tell you that they're not. We are human, and it's really just about the practice. And I know even in my mastermind, like I have women who have been in it for 3 and 4 years now because they need to come back to the work, right? And just have it kind of be at the forefront. So like you being here is such a testament to you saying like I've been learning and I've been practicing, and it's like it's a constant evolution. I don't think that we're ever at this end game where we're just like this, you know, Mary Magdalene of like parenting or anything like that. I say it like that because my husband the other day I was like feeling similarly to you, and I was just like, gosh, I wish like I would have said that differently or whatever. I was like ruminating, and then um the next day I was like, I handled that really well, and like they still, you know, didn't respond how I wanted them to respond. And he was like, yeah, like you just want the light to shine down and be like, oh, my angelic little kid. And it's like, Yeah, I think my expectations are too high there sometimes too, on like how I want people to respond to the hard work that I've been doing over here, like they don't realize how hard it is for me to like you said, de-escalate or regulate myself so that I can help them with love and compassion. And it's like it's almost like it's not recognized by them, and then I'm like, ugh, disappointed by that. So
Yeah, and I think too, like like we're all human, and there's so much growth in being human. You're not going to just stay the stagnant person your entire life. Like you're going to go
mhm.
toddler years, elementary years, preteen years, like, and then even as adults, like it's the same thing for us. Like I had my daughter at the age of 28, but now I'm almost 40, and here comes perimenopause at some point. So like
Right.
trying to balance our emotions and our hormones, but also coaxing or like parenting our children through each stage of life. So continuing to educate ourselves and surrounding ourselves with the support is needed, because you're not, like I said, you're not stagnant. You're going through different seasons throughout life or whatever. But sorry,
Yes.
probably
And
tangent.
so are they. I love how you made that point.
Yeah.
Like, so are they,
Yeah.
and it's
Yeah.
always a new season for us to learn.
For real. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. That was awesome. Yes. Okay. So where were we? Yeah, talking about, recognizing those signs when we get to that tip of the iceberg, because I also wanted to validate how unsupported moms really are in this society. And this is like a whole nother topic. But I encourage everyone to be an advocate for different social systems in our society for moms, because we are under supported and under resourced, and it is expected for us to be at the tip of the iceberg with everything that we have to manage and uphold. um the we know it, we know all of it. I don't have to go through all of it, but the mental load and just holding a job, and the same systems are in place today as when most mothers were staying home, and they weren't working. And that's just not the case today. There are some moms that get to do that, and that's wonderful. But that doesn't mean their job's any easier. In fact, it could be maybe even harder, because they don't get any breaks and get to go to work. You know what I mean? But even on that note, there's moms working and taking care of their kids at the same time now. After COVID, I think that just kind of fell into place. So I just want to validate that too, and encourage people to, advocate when and where they can, for different systems for mothers in our society. So I'm just going to interject that there. But when we regulate, our kids learn how to regulate. So when we model that behavior, they see it, and those mirror neurons are taking it in and absorbing this information and creating the patterning and the wiring within themselves. So that's also why I think this is so important. And so some practical tips, just for the ability to handle the stress and stay present and respond how you want to, and continually build the capacity. It's kind of like when you think of like a bowl, right? And it's overflowing with water. When we practice this and we build these muscles and we create those new pathways, that bowl almost gets bigger. So we just have more capacity. We can actually like handle a little more stress than maybe we could have 10 years ago, So that's kind of what we're working with here. But the first tool I had to recommend is the 4-7-8 breath pattern. And that does activate the parasympathetic nervous system. It calms the body and the mind. Super easy. We can do it literally anywhere, and in the grocery store. We can even do it when we get woken up in the middle of the night and we can't go back to sleep because our wonderful little angels, needed to be next to our bodies. Because I don't know if that happens to anyone else, but breath, right? It's always with us. It's always accessible. So I was going to invite all of us, if, to practice it if you want to. There's a million breath techniques out there, but I will say why this works so well is because that holding of the breath and the extended exhale are what are signaling our nervous system that we're safe, that it's okay, and that we can relax. And alternatively, if we're feeling opposite and we're feeling pretty down and depressed and like very much in our parasympathetic nervous system, so much so that we're kind of in that shutdown mode, we can reverse that. So we can actually make a longer inhale and then a shorter exhale, and that will kind of like pump up the gas pedal, as Annie says. I really like that analogy. That's good. So if you're able, which you should be, because even if you're cooking dinner or doing whatever you're doing, you should still be able to breathe. So if you want to close your eyes, you can. I'm going to, just so I can kind of drop in for a minute. But yeah, just relax our shoulders. And let's go ahead in through the nose. 2, 3, 4, hold. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Exhale through the nose. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Inhale. Hold. Exhale. Go ahead and continue that if you'd like. But already I feel a little more relaxed. I don't know. What do you think, Annie?
Started the class with that.
Yes. Next time.
Next time.
I think people need like a buy-in though. You know, it's like there's so many, oh, do this. And it's like me personally, I want to know how and why it works. And then I will like be like, okay, yes, I'm behind that. You know?
I like to know everything about.
Yeah, I'm a nerd, so I like to like tell me the facts and then I'll believe you. Okay, so yeah, that's just a really simple breath technique that you guys can take with you to calm down, and we'll talk about some more here. So one thing that I love to do when I am maybe not even necessarily in sympathetic activation, but maybe I'm really present and feeling really grateful, because we do have those moments too in motherhood where we're like, oh my God, like this feels magical a little bit. I'm a little bit in awe right now. And I like to lock those moments in. And I think that it's so important to expand the good feelings and be able to expand our capacity to experience those too, in addition to kind of shifting gears when we need to, when we're not feeling that way. And in tandem, both of those things really help us with that balance, and they help build our capacity overall. So whether you're feeling, you know, a lower frequency state or really anxious and irritable or sad, or whether you're feeling joy and gratitude and awe, you can practice this to kind of shift or expand. So this is just grounding, and you can do this with any kind of deep breathing or the 4-7-8 breath, but it really helps you stay and practice presence in the moment by engaging your senses. And it's really simple. It's called the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding method. And we simply just look around. So I encourage you to do this as a practice right now as I list these out. But look around and just notice 5, nurturing, interesting, beautiful things that you see around you. Just noticing 5 things. And then we can touch 4 different textures. Again, anything will do, but if there's something that's a little more interesting or appealing to you, just touching 4 different textures. And then we can listen for 3 different sounds. And then we can smell for 2 different scents if we have anything, if we have a candle or some oils around us or some spices, anything like that. My candle's kind of over there, so I'll smell my laundry detergent from the fresh air. And then a taste. So even just noticing like what your mouth kind of tastes like right now. Really not that fun half the time. But if you had like a cup of coffee, this is a really good time in the morning to just ground. Speaking of which, I am a really big proponent of having some type of morning ritual for yourself, even if it's 5 minutes, just to ground before it's like off to the races with everyone. Bacon, Ashley smelling bacon. We love bacon at our house. So that's our second tip. Our third one is the vagus nerve stimulation. So this really promotes relaxation and activates that longest nerve in our body. So we can do this simply by humming, like humming a song or just humming along. But I'll also teach you kind of a one up from that. It's called the VU breath, and it sounds really funny. But I promise if your kids are having a meltdown and you do this, it will make them laugh and be like, what are you doing? And it will totally distract them from whatever they were melting down about. But the VU breath was introduced by Peter Levine, who is a trauma therapist. And it's really easy, but it does sound silly. So doing this in the grocery store, like go for it, because more people need to know about it, but people will probably look at you funny. So what that is just a regular inhale all the way into our belly. And then we exhale with a voo, like all the way to the end of that, and really focusing on your belly button when you're doing that. And you'll feel the whole vibration throughout your body. And I absolutely love that breath because I feel like it works instantly. Have you heard of that one before, Annie?
I haven't. No, I used to teach like kind of a nervous system class to yoga instructors though.
Oh,
And the
cool.
eye breathing, like that throat constriction is I mean, same with the Om, like that tone of like how you control your vocal cords help stimulate vagus nerve. And so I think it's awesome, any of it. But
I
that,
love it.
yeah, similar.
I didn't even think about that with like the Om. And I always love that about yoga classes. And I feel like teachers don't do it as much as they used to.
Yeah.
But I love that. Okay, cool. Good to know. Another thing is just like slow neck rolls because that's, where the tip of it is. So I was told by my massage therapist that I need to do more neck and shoulder rolls. And like when I'm at my computer to just get up for a minute and literally go and do that. So those are 3 ways we can activate our nervous or our vagus nerve. And then my fourth tip is tapping, and I'm not going to get into everything because this is a really big topic. However, if you've heard of the emotional freedom technique or you haven't, it is a psychological acupressure technique, which basically is a fancy term for being able to regulate our nervous system. And actually we can heal trauma with this. This was how do I say this? This was approved by the VA, the Veterans Association, to treat war veterans with PTSD. So tapping is amazing. And I'm just going to teach you a few of the points. Like there's a whole system that you can do, and like we can really heal trauma, and we can go through a lot of specific memories that we can do healing with through tapping, but we can also use this in the moment. And it's not necessarily so important to do the whole ritual, but just to tap on the points.
Riley just said, and doing with your kids too.
And doing it with your kids, yes. It's so funny. My son loves tapping. Like at nighttime, he'll be like, tap on me. And my daughter's like, no, get away. Like, don't tap with me. And I'm like, okay, to each their own. They're so different. But okay, so I'm gonna lower my camera so you can see me a little bit. But on our ribs, and I don't mean to sound funny or anything, but directly below your nipples, right on that rib area is where a really good point to tap on is. So this is what I call our emergency tapping points. So when we're just like really needing to calm down, or we're like in traffic and it's like, oh my God, this is so frustrating, right? We can tap right here on our nerves or on our ribs with deep breaths. And we can just say, I am safe. I am safe. Or all is well, right? We want some type of empowering message because this is a combination of positive psychology, a little bit of Chinese acupressure, and then a little bit of neuroscience. So saying those empowering messages while taking the deep breaths and tapping on the points can really help you shift your state. Another point is right in between this is called your gamut point. And it's right in between the metatarsals of your ring and pinky finger. So if you can kind of feel that, what was that?
Carpals.
Metacarpals. Did I say tarsals?
Yeah.
I was like, I knew that wasn't the right word, but I was like, yes, metacarpals. Thank you.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, it's just on a different appendage. So yeah, there's that like kind of softer spot in between those two bones, and we can tap there and say the same thing, like, all is well. I am not being chased by a tiger. All is well. All is well, right? So you can go ahead and try those and see how they feel. And then the last spot is just the top of that head. It doesn't even have to be anywhere specific, just everywhere. So, and it just feels so good. I just love tapping. So yeah, phrases like I am safe, I am calm, all is well, can go a long way. And these tools, like I said, can be used in the heat of the moment. They can be used at bedtime. They can be used while you're having coffee. I highly recommend having a dedicated space in your house that you can retreat to kind of practice some of these things when you are in the heat of the moment, because it's really hard to regulate when like people are shouting at you and needing things from you and demanding all the things from you. And we can do it a lot faster and effectively if we just take a moment to ourselves. So highly recommend that. And just having that space, you can have things there that you like, or you can create like a little box that you can move around with to different spaces if you don't have like a specific space in your house. So anything on that, Annie, before we go into co-regulation?
Do you mind if I do a little plug for chiropractic care?
Of course.
Oh, that's
I'm gonna turn on my light while you do that.
Sure, I know. It was getting dark outside. That was my main light too. I got mine on. So as a big plug, thanks, Ashley. So as a chiropractor too, one of our tests that we do in our office is heart rate variability, which is measuring your vagal tone. And so if we have poor heart rate variability, we're stuck in that sympathetic fight or flight gas pedal state. We can measure that, and then we come up with a care plan based on that too. One of the main things that we do, like when we're adjusting, is always checking atlas, which is C1. That's the top bone of the spine. And if you remember from the diagram, the vagus nerve exits right in front of C1. So there's a lot of intervention and a lot of like cross communication between like C1 and vagus nerve right here. So if there's a subluxation there that's affecting, the musculature and how these nerves are functioning, it's also going to affect vagus nerve. So that's a really cool thing about what we can do as chiropractors, is just adjusting that and making sure that if everything's working up here, then vagus nerve should be working, and it'll be easier to get back into that parasympathetic state. Because if we're stuck in a subluxated state, we can practice a lot of those grounding techniques and stuff, but our body's still kind of stuck in that sympathetic because it's just like in survival mode because of that subluxation. So I just wanted to put a plug in here for that too, because that's my bread and butter. And that's what I'm super passionate about, is like helping kids regulate nervous systems, helping parents regulate nervous systems through that, like getting the nervous system regulated through chiropractic care, and then also having these techniques to just help self-soothe and self-regulate also. So
I love that. I feel like that's like alignment. Like you're doing, and I know you say that in chiropractic work, but like you're doing the alignment of the nervous system and getting it all in the right places and functioning properly so that these tools can work for people.
and be as effective as possible. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Love that. Which reminds me, I need to get my daughter back in there some more. Awesome. Yes. And they're at Rise Wellness, which is in East Town. And they're awesome. Their office is, got toys for kids, and it's just super easy and quick. And they've got treats. That's why my kids like to come. They got snacks. My kids are like grabbing the snacks and they come, they're grabbing their snacks and they go. And I'm almost embarrassed because I'm like, oh my God, like you guys are fiends. You act like you don't eat, but that's what they do there.
Digest side of the nervous system. So they're realizing they're hungry after getting adjusted.
Oh my God, I love that. And I asked Annie, I was like, why do I feel so calm when I leave there instantaneously? I just love it. And she was telling me because they're activating that parasympathetic nervous system with their clicks. So pretty cool. Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we got 9 minutes. We'll quickly talk about co-regulation. I'll offer some little homework ideas, and then I do have a little PDF with a summary of all this, so you don't have to like memorize it all. But co-regulation, right? Kids mirror their caregivers' emotional states. We have mirror neurons. We have them as adults too. So that's why when our kid is melting down, we often feel like we need to melt down because it's just natural. It's a natural response, right? So one thing is a calm down hug. And that's just like really providing that feeling of security. And some kids will respond well to this, some kids won't. My son is such a cuddler and loves physical touch. And my daughter doesn't really care for that. So it's like you kind of got to feel out what works best for them. But just giving your kids like a nice gentle hug and saying like, let's calm down our bodies together. And then we can breathe and we can like regulate together. And, as our systems start to calm down, they're again mirroring each other. So hopefully by doing this, right, the de-escalation is just happening together at the same time and getting the what am I trying to say? Like as it's de-escalating, it will just continue to do that as the mirror neurons are firing back at each other. Does that make sense?
Kind of like when you're breathing together, like if you're breathing, someone else will mirror their breathing too. Yeah.
And that's how we build rapport. Like a lot of people think building rapport is just like complimenting people, but if we're breathing at the same rate or making the same kind of hand gestures or putting our hands like in the same place that their hands are, like is psychologically and in our subconscious creating rapport. So you can remember that with your kids too, of like you can do what they're doing and then they're gonna trust you more. Okay. And then modeling that self-regulation. So you, by practicing the tools that we talked about today, you're building capacity and you're teaching them how to manage their emotions by watching you. And again, this goes for partners too, because I know that in the work that I do with mamas, partners are a lot of what we talk about. They come there for their kids, and then 3 months into it, we get to the nitty gritty and we find out that, we're not always on the same page. So being able to model that self-regulation, can teach everyone around us how to also manage their emotions. And then as Annie mentioned, just practicing that joint breathing as a family, like Maybe you create a ritual before dinner time, or maybe it's before bedtime, or maybe it's in the morning, um, or maybe it's in the heat of the moment, you know, after they've calmed down a little bit. But practicing that joint breathing, just inhaling and exhaling together, like count of 4 in, count of 4 out, or count of 4 in, 8 out, or doing the 4, 4 7 8 breathing. But any type of breathing together is going to co-regulate together, just as you mentioned. So anything else on that?
I'll just throw in another little like nerd tip.
Please. Yeah.
But that any like controlled breathing, like we talked about, like vagus kind of like stimulating, like when you're constricting your throat and doing that type of breathing. So like Ujjayi breathing in yoga. But when you're just controlling and counting your breathing, you're taking your breath from your traps in these muscles, which is really sympathetic inducing. This is where like sympathetic nucleus is in our body. This is why we hold on so hard, like with our shoulders up to our ears when we're stressed out, again, protective. But when we're like counting our breathing, we're breathing with our diaphragm more. And so we're using like our soft belly muscles and I was thinking that when you were talking about tapping, like on your rib cage too, like that's right where I feel like that's all, again, just reconnecting and recentering with the areas of your body where we should be living, where we should be like, we should be breathing in our diaphragms. We shouldn't be breathing with our accessory muscles up here. So just another little nerdy side note.
Yeah, and no, I think that's helpful too for like signaling, right? Like, can you notice that you're kind of walking around like this, and let that just be a signal that you're like,
I think
okay, I need
it's hard to tell your kids to regulate when we're like this, right? We're aware.
ah!
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and noticing that, and am I breathing, you know, is my heart racing? Am I breathing from my chest instead of breathing from my belly? And I'll just add a nerd thing here too, is that a lot of people, or some people I should say, are very anxious in their lives because they actually are not breathing the proper way. And the proper way is to breathe into the belly and let the belly expand. And then when we breathe out, the belly um, decompresses, right? Some people breathe, and so they're breathing in and their belly is constricting, and then they're breathing out and their belly is expanding. So just a quick note, I've had some clients in the past whose lives have changed because of that. Very, very simple thing. It's like, oh, we know how to breathe. It's a natural function. But that could be contributing to some stress in your body as well. Yeah. All right. So that's all I have for you guys. Do you have any reflections, questions, celebrations, takeaways, anything that you guys want to share?
I guess one of the final things I was thinking about as we were talking about co-regulating or mirroring, this is something that
Mm-hmm.
I'm learning a lot to do. I grew up in a very I can never say that word,
Authoritative.
style household. Yes, thank you. And so
Uh-huh.
like a lot of the like parenting was done out of anger or frustration. It was a quick like knee-jerk reaction, and given directions, not really given the opportunity to speak as a kid. And so for me,
Mm-hmm.
like having to learn how to parent differently and slowing down and letting my children have voices, but also like I think sometimes in today's society we're still fighting the, well, if we slow down and allow them to give them space, or we mirror them or co-regulate with them, we're letting them win, we're letting them like be spoiled or whatever. And just reminding ourselves that like that's not, or at least this is my reminder that that's not the case at all. It's giving them a voice because they're human too, and allowing them to express their feelings and their needs and how to like communicate that too, and just kind of breaking that like a generation of like parenting that has come before us and giving voices to our kids now so that when they are adults they can also continue to do the same thing, because it's better to learn at an 9 years old versus me being 38 or 39 and still trying to learn how to do that, like, you know. So that was one of my
Amen.
reflective thoughts.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Ashley, we need to meet because
Yes, absolutely.
yes,
I mean, when I
I
go to
love
Rise
everything you're
Wellness, I
saying.
hang out a lot. So you can just come to Rise.
I know. Okay, I will. But yeah, I feel you and hear you on that, and I think so many people that are our age feel the same way and have had that experience. As a child with their experience of parenting and are really trying to do things differently. And there are going to be people that poo poo that idea and think that it's not right. But I can just say to everyone that we all have the opportunity to raise our children in the way that we think is right. And there's, what other people think about that. I don't think really matters because, it's our own family and every journey is unique. Um, but yeah, I think we do still battle that and just that traditional sense of, I just think back to like the schoolhouses when kids would get like whipped or hit
Yes.
with like something, and it's like no wonder,
Mhm.
they are the way they are as adults. And
Mhm.
yeah, you doing this work is making a huge impact for your kids and all the generations that follow them.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
kids are brilliant and they have so many solutions inside of them if we could allow them to express themselves and to access those solutions. It's like they become such more critical thinkers and problem solvers, which is ultimately what we want them to be doing anyway. So not giving them that space is just like it's not logical, you know? Yeah. Man, I love kids. Most of the time. Okay, well, just a last bit of encouragement. Small, consistent efforts are so powerful and do lead up to big changes. And every time you pause and give yourself that opportunity to build those new neural connections, you make it a habit and you build a safer, calmer home. And one image I'll leave you guys with is like be gentle with ourselves because these patterns and reactions and wirings are deeply ingrained in us, through our lifetime and even through generations. And so I like to think of it as like we have these pathways within our wiring system that are like trenches, right? They're very deep because we're, in our 30s or 40s or whatever now. And when we start to make new neural pathways, it's almost like a little crevice. But the more that we practice that and make it deeper, that becomes like our new trenches. And so sticking to the work and continuing to show up and continuing to practice these things and to get our chiropractic care really makes a big difference 10 years from now. And, the things that we feel like might be hard for us to do today will be like second nature at that point.
I think also, I mean, a lot of us have had to reparent ourselves. And so speak to yourself and treat yourself the way you want to treat and speak to your kids too. In that
Mm.
ideal mentality, just be gentle with yourself and, love yourself and support yourself too.
Amazing. Thank you, Annie. I totally agree with that. My last homework idea, I mentioned the space for yourself to retreat to. You could even have some type of calming corner in your home with like sensory tools or little books or cards or whatever. Mine is literally on my stairs, like halfway up my stairs, because kids like to run away to the stairs when they're upset. And then voila, there's a picture of your emotions right there. So that you can be like, that's how I feel. So that's just an idea to kind of help with the full social emotional wellness of your home. Um, and if you want to start, a shared practice with your family, such as that breathing or daily gratitude, highly recommend that too. And if you would like to connect with me more at all, you can find me on Instagram, on Facebook, my business. Here is in my name. It's Wild Happy Worth. And I do have a website. It's wildhappyworth.com. I do offer coaching. I offer a group program for moms, and I am also seeing clients in person at Heart in Balance Holistic Psychotherapy, which is in Cascade. So I would love to connect more, even if it's on a personal level and not a professional level, because I am just trying to expand my network of moms who get it and are doing the work and kind of give a damn about this. And so, yeah, that's me. Annie?
Yeah, you can find us on Instagram or on our website, Rise Wellness Chiro, CHIRO. That's, yeah, probably best ways to reach us if you have any questions or want to reach out. Taylor, I just want to thank you so much for putting this together. I think where we are in the world right now, like this is what we need, is like small groups of women lifting each other up and just and I think this is really important work. And so let's keep doing it. Let's have another one of these, like maybe in the spring or summer, and we'll share this video, and we'll just, let a lot of moms know that they're safe and they're supported, and we're here to advocate for them.
Amen. What a great send off. Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come here too and share. Y'all were awesome, and I hope to connect further with you all. That's all I have.
All right. Well,
have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Enjoy the snow.
Yeah. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.